Close Podcast with Caber Hill Advisors. Today we have my friend Amir Hadar. Most people, myself included, know Amir for his work in the hearing industry. Today he owns a very large group of Bell-Tone hearing care centers across both the U.S. and Canada. This is his second venture in large retail, but Amir's reach really extends to a lot of different businesses. He is the classic serial entrepreneur, and he has a great story to tell. So looking forward to diving in. Amir, let's just right from the start. Your first big business in the hearing aid space, Bell-Sono, was founded in 2014. At the time, you called it Hearing Health USA. Tell us a little bit about the idea and what made you think it would work.
So thank you, Craig, for the intro. The idea was, at the time, I was CEO of a fairly large retail organization. It didn't start out large, but it basically became that way as I was there. I was the CEO of a retail for manufacturer, large-scale manufacturer in the U.S. I started in 2005, and back then the industry had tremendous potential, and that was the reason for me stepping into it in the first place. The industry was changing from analog hearing aids around the year 2000. It was changing from analog to digital. Baby boomers were, at least ostensibly, around the corner and going to be knocking down our doors. That's just, I don't know how many years later this is right now. 20 years later, it's starting to happen. But back then,
still right around the corner, right?
It's pretty much still around the corner, and they're asking a lot of questions. But digital hearing aids were there. Small audiology practices, I noticed, had nobody to sell to. Practices that were bringing in $250,000, $300,000 a year, and were, resigning, or they were pretty much shutting down their practices. So there was a lot of opportunity to buy those and roll them up. Better technology was finally available to serve everybody. Again, I was running the retail division for Oticon. We started out with about 15 clinics, and when I resigned in 2014, for the sake of going off on my own, at that point we were at about, I think we had about 200 locations. There was just a tremendous upside to the business, and having been in business my entire life prior to getting into the hearing aid industry, I felt that it was time to go off on my own. There were corporate changes happening. Everything, the stars, I would say, were kind of aligned for me to go out there on my own. And what I noticed, while I was working for the manufacturer, I noticed that the manufacturers or anyone that was buying clinics were after the bigger ones. They were after ones that were doing $1 million in sales, 15, 20% in EBITDA. But nobody was buying the ones that would bring in 250 up to 750 in sales. They had no one to sell to, so I felt as though I could go out there, get those for much lower multiples, and also through my experience running that large operation for the manufacturer, I knew that we can grow those. So we'd buy a $250,000 practice and grow it to $750,000, or 500 to 700, in some cases even more than that. So it was just the opportunity was there. I seized it. The funding was readily available. Every manufacturer in the industry at that point saw what we did before, and were willing to step in at very favorable terms. Terms that included, for instance, no personal guarantee on the initial tranche, or something that was kind of I've unforeseen, or I've never seen before in any industry, where money was that readily available, and everybody was just anxious to give it to me at pretty much whatever terms I dictated. So that was the drive, and hopefully I've answered that question for you.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing because we do work in so many different sectors, and there's no financing like hearing aid manufacturer financing, especially the way it was back then, for sure. It was a very, very unique product. You took advantage of it. And look, we were involved in some of your early deals, so I can attest to the fact that you articulated this strategy back then. This is not hindsight bias kicking in and saying, oh yeah, that's what made this work. You came out of Oticon, with this clear vision, you executed it. And I really don't think I've seen anybody able to buy these really small clinics that really are not performing in any way from a pure business sense. Great providers, they're taking care of their patients, but according to all business metrics, they're really underperforming. You ratchet them up. I mean, we're talking about immediate growth. First year doubling and tripling of revenue. It was very, very impressive to watch.
One fun fact is you got me my first practice. It was the first, maybe the second and the third as well, but you were definitely there.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and we'll get to this. I was there at the end too. So bring us forward to today with the current Beltone business. What's similar to what you did with Belsono, and what's different this time around?
Well, it's definitely bigger, and it's going to be bigger. The biggest difference is scale, especially as it pertains to the funding element. We have significantly more backing than we did before. The current lender was also a manufacturer. They have a tremendous amount of trust in us, which either the people that are funding us today have followed my specific story, and my business partners, Jonathan Weisman, they followed our specific story since our first days in the industry. And at this point, the aim is to build, to create a certain level of history, and to build what I believe will be the largest ever privately held entity in our industry. We're aiming at 350 to 400 locations at this point, and I'm glad to say that we're halfway there at this juncture. And that's the biggest difference, is the level of funding. What's similar is that we are known as consolidators at heart. But this time we're working under the Beltone banner, which I thought would be challenging only because Beltone was always known as a pure retailer. So when you approach audiologists in our industry, there is a certain element of questioning. Are we going to become a pure retailer, or do we keep our audiology practice? And I'm glad to say now that we've done this for 2-3 years, I don't have that as a challenge. It was a real challenge at first. You and I have had discussions about that.
We've discussed this at length. Yeah, I absolutely perceived it as a challenge. Clearly, you've overcome it.
We're at this juncture where, obviously I can't name any names, but we're on the verge of buying one of the an audiology fixture in our industry at this juncture. Someone that you specifically probably would not think that I'd be able to speak to when we spoke about 2-3 years ago about it. I honestly don't know, how we were making this happen, but it's over the next 30 days or so, there's going to be a big announcement. And it's as audiology and as much an audiologist as can be. So that tells me that we've really been able to cross that bridge. And there were certain concerns. Everyone knows that we are a Beltone agent. And one of the reasons that brought me to Beltone was the individual running, GN at this point, whom I've developed, great trust and relationship. It does, another thing that maybe ties into your question of what's similar, it's the relationships that you form. And that's what basically got us to where we needed to be during the first time. And this is what led us to this particular venture here. It's a set of individuals that work with what's now GN Beltone that brought me to the table. Because my initial response was no.
Status in the hearing industry, guys like Teal and Gracias will say if Elon brings an idea, they're going to back it. It doesn't matter what it is, and I'm saying this somewhat sarcastically, but it's right. True. You have proven yourself time and again, and they know that you are as safe a bet as they're going to find. If they don't want to own the retail themselves, they should back you and Jonathan because you have proven the model.
No, it's definitely Jonathan and myself. I mean, it takes a village, as we know. And another thing that anyone watching this should know, it's because it's our third go around, maybe our second as entrepreneur, but the following that we have, the level of trust that we have from our people, I do believe we have the best in the business, and not only the best in the business, but also people that we've groomed to potentially be our successors at one point in running this business. So that's another thing that stretches from one business to the next as the level of following that we have by our backers as well as our as well as our employees, especially in management.
Yeah, I think just sticking with the backing for a second longer, something that a lot of entrepreneurs don't fully appreciate until they're in it, if not until it's too late, is how much the capital behind you can make or break the growth story. It doesn't matter how good of an idea you have, how many problems you solve, if you don't have somebody to back it, if you don't have the balance sheet yourself to support it, the business can be dead on arrival. And so, it's interesting that, yeah, there's some other elements of secret sauce here, but you're not saying the big difference between the last business and this business is some revolutionary delivery mechanism or technology that's changed the game. It's relationships, it's capital, and I'm going to guess some of this lessons learned from the first go round.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing that has changed as far as technology, or at least laws associated around technology, is the fact that the hearing aids, as they stand as medical devices, are more than keeping up with the PSAPs or the so-called hearing aids that are available right now over the counter or over the internet or etc. The manufacturers have been able to keep a great distance between what it is they bring to the table versus what's available out there, which are still sound amplifiers, just glorified as hearing aids. So technology has certainly helped in terms of being able to bring patients through the door. The fact that that's kept up has helped. But you're right, there's nothing revolutionary. It does come down to funding, to trust, funding, and execution, which has kind of remained the same.
Absolutely. Well, let's take it back to Belsono. This is an M&A podcast after all. When did you start thinking about that exit, and what did you and Jonathan do to prepare?
So as you mentioned before, you were there at the inception of it, and I did pretty much spell out what the plan was. And I'm glad, in retrospect, I'm glad that you're able to say on this podcast that we did execute. But the idea was, I was there as the CEO of the manufacturing company, and I watched people just start these businesses and sell them within 2 years, 3 years, 4 years for what, at least at that time, were amounts of money that were just unbelievable to me. And I did see some roll-ups when I was there. And given that my background was in business, I felt that I can go out there and do it. And the plan was, from the beginning, the plan was a 5 to 7 year plan. We wanted to reach a certain level of sales, and we were in associated EBITDA, and sell it. So it was a business that was designed to build and sell within a 5 to 7 year period. And I'm glad to say that we actually sold 5 years to the day. We reached our number within about 3.5 years. Started thinking about selling then. Back then it didn't. It also helped that back then there was the Warren and Grassley bill, the Affordable Hearing Aid Act of 2016, which didn't come around until 2021, 2022. But back then it led us to feel that there was a certain threat, albeit I didn't think it would be a great one, but definitely led us to believe, okay, we are now sales-wise where we wanted to be. Let's start focusing on having the company be as profitable as can be. But the driver was the fact that it was originally created to be a 5 to 7 year deal. We were where we needed to be, and we started looking for the purchaser.
Well, it's well documented that in 2019, you realized that vision. You sold the business to Alpaca, which at the time was a portfolio company of Thompson Street Capital Partners. A couple of years later, exited themselves to Sonova, the big Swiss strategic in the space. How did you end up selecting Alpaca as your partner?
Alpaca approached us. We also owned, at the time, we owned a small buying group that we started because we thought that it would be a great business that could feed our hearing aid business. So why not have a buying group? And Alpaca originally approached us about that. And that was the entire conversation. It never really went anywhere. Um, we knew the buyers were there. I mean, we knew that pretty much every large scale manufacturer would be interested. We had existing relationships with pretty much all of them. But it really ended up coming down to timing. One thing that I did like about Alpaca is that um, unlike a manufacturer that already had retail facilities and would probably do away with my entire management staff or middle management or administrative staff, Alpaca were going to keep us as we were. They needed everything that we brought to the table, the management team, the facilities, and the foundation we had for running a large-scale national hearing aid company. But at the end of the day, they were there, they were available. I believe that the principals at the time had what it took to get the deal done, whereas there were some consolidations going on at the time. If you may recall, Widex and Insignia were merging. They were putting all their deals on hold. I think it just, again, comes down to the fact that the stars aligned on that one as well. And again, the principals were there, money in hand. They acted on whatever promises, verbal promises were made. They acted on a fairly speedy fashion, and we ended up making it happen.
Yes, you did. We were a part of that deal as well. Coincidentally, we're there at the start. We're there at the end. Kind of fun to see things come full circle. Your comments and timing are interesting because I feel like that's been the story of M&A in the hearing aid industry for 20 plus years now. One group is hot and they're rolling everything up, and then they either make a transformative acquisition or they make a mistake and they pause, and the next group comes and steps in and starts filling the shoes. And that was really that story of the Alpaca run up from 2017 to 2022, 2023, that whole journey. And you know, interestingly, you know, Belsono brought a lot to that organization. You know, there really was an opportunity for your team to step in and fill a lot of important roles. It was more than just buying offices and hearing aid sales and EBITDA. You know, they bought a team too, and you know, I think there was, you know, absolutely value attributed to what, you know, you and Jonathan had built beyond just the footprint and you know, the addresses on the website. So I mean, I think there's a lot positive there. What went wrong, or what would you do differently, you know, the next time around?
I think that the litmus test is actually if I look at anything, you know, over my lifetime as it pertains to business or anything else, I look at you know, 3-5 years down the line, and I ask myself, would I do this again? Knowing everything I know right now, knowing everything that I knew beforehand, and then everything I've gone through over the past 3-5 years, would I have done anything differently? And the answer is no. I think that yes, there were certain bumps in the road, but it worked. They did exactly what they said they were going to do up until the point of the closing. So that's where everything went right. You know, the typical negotiations back and forth, you know, a little speed bumps on the way to closing, but nothing that you know, that I would deem as you know, incredibly terrible. Everything just kind of worked out that way, the way I would have wanted it to. And then the only thing anyone should know, and I'm not the first one to say it, and I'm probably not going to be the last, is that when you're selling your business, be prepared that you're no longer, although notwithstanding anything you're told, you're not going to run the business after you sell it. And you get paid, you sell it, you get paid a tremendous amount of money. We were told that we were going to run the business. There's nothing that you do that we would do any differently. You guys are the best at what you do. There's no reason for us to change anything. We're all looking at that proverbial second bite at the apple. And lo and behold, everything changed, right? The next, within a week or two, I had a new boss. And not just one, but the new boss in the office sitting there and kind of telling me what to do every day. I think that our heart was in the right place. I can still say that Jonathan and I truly wanted this thing to succeed. We wanted to grow in accordance with what it is that was projected and what it is that was promised to us. We wanted to reach that second bite at the apple. And then everything did change. Again, would I do it again? Absolutely. Whatever it is that happened, I can live with, because I did get, my goals were met for this, and my team were all able to keep their position, to keep their jobs. Some liked the transition, some didn't, but that's kind of typical. So I would say that just know and understand, what the contract says. What are you going to be expected to do when the sale does happen? And just know that you're able to live with the fact that there is going to be change. It's generally not personal, it's business. Although it does get personal from time to time, we know that. But you have to be able to withstand it. If you're gonna sell your business and get paid that kind of cash, just be ready for the fact that you no longer call the shots afterwards. At least not to the extent you did before. But nothing surprised me there. I can't say it was easy every day, but it was not surprising.
Well, if it were easy, everyone would do it, right? And it's quite the litmus test that you can look back 5, 6 years now at this point later and say you do it again. Not that anybody was feeling sorry for you, because it was an incredible, financially rewarding transaction, if nothing more. And it's afforded you a lot in life. You've opened other businesses. You've gotten to spend a lot of time with your family, taking some
Absolutely
great trips and doing some other, amazing experiences. But at the end of the day, it is business, and you no longer own the business. And, this is one thing that we always try to counsel our clients with on the front end, when we're on the sell side, advising entrepreneurs who've never sold a business before. You're meeting multiple buyers. Yes, you're selling them your company, but don't forget that they're coming in and they're putting on a sales pitch too. They want to convince you that they are going to be the best steward of your business going forward. Let's just assume that we're going to have a couple that are close financially, and you're deciding on other criteria. Where is any rollover equity going to appreciate the most? Who is going to treat your employees the best? Who is going to, quote unquote, leave you alone? I think for the most part, they're all sincere in those as objectives, but then you actually have to move on and keep running the business after you close it. And that's when things can go in a variety of different directions. And the more you have your eyes wide open going through all of that, I think the more you can be at peace with it, no matter which direction it goes.
I would say, to use an old adage, right? Expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
Be ready to part with what it is that you've built. Because again, you're getting paid well for it, and be just emotionally ready for what comes next, and understand your choices one way or another. There's always a choice, and there was a choice here, and it was exercised.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it did work out. It did work out. I can't complain. And if I did complain, nobody would care. So
there you go. At least you recognize that. So
yes.
Last question, and you may have already given a little of this away, but give us some advice for a business owner. This audience is mostly business owners and folks who advise business owners. So what's a piece of advice that they're not going to hear every day on LinkedIn or in the next business book they read?
In terms of selling their business, or in terms of just general business advice?
A or B or both.
So in terms of I'll just summarize what I said before. In terms of selling your business, and I still buy businesses every day. So I deal with people selling the business, and I always tell them, I've been where you are. I understand the anxiety. I understand the sleepless nights, and I understand the thought process. Should I hold on to it for a few years? Should I grow it? Is now the time to sell? What's going to change? What will affect my business? I mean, all that's normal, and you're going to go through it. Just know what you're signing. From the perspective of selling your business, know what you're signing. Use a great advisor, such as, and I'll give you a bit of a plug here, such as Caber-Hill, that know and understand your business, and not only know and understand it, have the experience to pretty much tell you based on everything they've seen, to forecast for you whether you're getting a great deal or not, and what your future may look like, your foreseeable future for the next few years. Know and understand your contract. Know how it will impact you from a business and a professional, from a business professional basis, also from a personal basis. Are you able to take orders from somebody else? Are you able to treat your business, that what's been yours, in a way that's no longer totally dependent on you? Can you deal with that? And I would say, for the right money, I would say that probably most would be, right? That doesn't mean you sell your soul to the devil, but just know and understand your contracts. What are the expectations? Know that your expectations as far as your price are probably not going to be met always, right? And then again,
spoken
make
like
sure
a true buyer right there.
know that yes, I guess that was also a plug of the sorts. But understand what your life's going to look like day one, and just be ready to deal with it. And it's never going to be perfect, but for the most part, if let's say 90% of what it is you came to the table with is met, then just go through with it. As far as business advice, I get asked that a lot, and there are a couple of elements there. As far as the business that you're in, if you're about to start a business, just know and understand, at least to me, again, it doesn't have to apply to anybody else, but these are rules that I follow when I look at any business. Understand the potential of your business, its scalability. There are a lot of dead-end businesses out there. I've been in a few. I've been involved in a few. Before I entered the hearing aid business, I was involved in quite a few. Some were very successful, some were not. But know and understand the ability of scale, the whole concept of scale. Make sure you enter into a business that's sellable, right? That's sellable, that it's something that you can grow without you there one day, right? That somebody can buy from you and still run it. And if the business, if business does well, then you, by all means, continue to pour money into it if you need to grow it. But also know the difference between good money after bad, throwing money into a business that's just not doing what it needs to. I'm somewhat guilty of that as well, holding on for too long. So knowing the balance between having a good business that has great potential that you can scale and grow, and one day retire with not have financial worries, or keep dumping money into a business that's basically quite the opposite, right? Something that strips you of your funds as opposed to adds to your wealth. As important, surround yourself with people that you trust. That's easier said than done. But also people that complement your own weaknesses. Give people the right people. Give people minority shares in your business. If you find the right person, if you run across someone that can run your business when you're out of town, you're on vacation, or something happens in your family and you need to step away. If you find a person that you can trust with your business, I always say 80% of something is better than 100% of nothing. So find the right people and reward them well. Know that you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You have to, as a business owner, you have to be able to make the tough decisions. And if you can't do that, then you shouldn't be in business. But surround yourself with people that can help you make those decisions. Listen to what they have to say if you trust them, and you'll be reward them well, and you'll be well rewarded. And finally, and this is not mine. I heard it. I think it was. I forget who it was that said it recently, but work-life balance doesn't have to come on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. I mean, if you push hard, for a certain stretch of time and you make certain sacrifices, you'll have the financial freedom later to make up for missed family dinners, long weekends, and the long weekends you spend at the office. Don't just assume that you're going to have an infinite amount of time. Don't live for the weekend, right? Don't live, between now and your next vacation. Work hard now. I think that's probably the key to success. Is I even though I'm doing this, and I'm blessed to say that I'm doing this now because I want to, not because I have to. I probably work harder now than I did in Bolsonaro or even before. I work as hard as ever because I've come to the conclusion that work is my hobby. That's really what I enjoy doing. I enjoy building businesses, and I enjoy watching progress happen. And I enjoy the fact that there's history to be made. And at this point, also at my age, it's also about legacy. So don't worry about, missing out on a weekend, and don't worry about missing out on a weekend away or dinner with friends. Work as hard as you can. Tomorrow is not a promise.
Yeah, and you absolutely can be outworked, and that is the clearest way a competitor can make up ground, whether it's sports, whether it's business, any walk of life. I think your comments about balance are interesting because we have this classic sense, this media portrayed sense of work-life balance, and it's you work this many days and then you have these days off, or you take this vacation, and I cannot tell you the last time I went even half of a day without thinking about my business. I might be on vacation with my family in another continent, another time zone. It's still front and center all the time, and it doesn't stop me from enjoying myself. If I'm hopping on a call or responding to emails while everybody's slowly waking up, or whatever else is happening that is not a core part of the trip, but I'm looking out over the Alps, or I'm in beautiful northern Michigan, that's to me the most relaxing place on earth, right? I'm happy. I'm doing multiple things that I enjoy at the same time. Building my business, the work part of it, with the balance and the relaxation and the family time all wrapped into one. We all have our own version of what that looks like and what makes sense, whether it's sprint and then rest, whether it's wrap the two around each other, or it is that more traditional sense. It doesn't have to take any one form.
I always say that I think my kids at this point, and some of them are college age at this juncture, I may have missed a recital or a play from time to time. I tried not to. I always try not to. Family should come first up to a certain extent, but I think that my children, my adult children, appreciate the fact now that they can go to the best university they can get into. Probably more. I mean, they'll always remember that. They may not remember that I wasn't at that play, right? And mom had to take a video, and that's all I had when I came back from my business trip. There's balance in everything, and if you're a successful entrepreneur, you'll know what that balance is. But that's the one piece of advice that I can give you. Work, making money is not a dirty concept. I mean, it doesn't resolve all your issues, and it doesn't buy you happiness, but it buys you a peace of mind, and it buys you the ability to provide for your family and give them the best possible life. And at the end of the day, what else do we have?
Truer words may never be spoken. Amir, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us here on The Close.
Much appreciated. Good luck with everything.